police is $160,000. These are things that not only they're going to have in the vehicles, but they're able to take with them.
Hey, John, could you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear you.
Apologize. Here we go. These are portable and also mobile radios for the police department as they use. There are 10, and actually there are 20 altogether, and they cost $160,000. The useful life is between 8 and 10 years. Obviously, communication is very important when you're dealing with health and safety. The police, both in the cruisers and when they're out of it, and that's what these are. These are radios and portable radios for the police department.
Follow-up question. So item V, Victor, was removed. I just want clarification, or I should say confirmation, that no aspect of that technology is included here or otherwise going to be acquired?
It is not in this capital plan.
Thank you.
And thank you for your patience, sir. Other questions on item G? Mr. Deputy Moderator.
That's the fire department.
Okay. Item G requires a 2/3 vote. Okay. All those in favor of item G signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, unanimous but one. And let's hear from the Deputy Moderator. Unanimous in the reserve room and unanimous but one in here. So voted and declared a 2/3 vote. Item H. You've been so patient.
I got up far too early. Hi, I'm Jean Rankin from 45 Marshall Avenue, and I am delighted to see this, that this is getting done, so thank you. My question is, when will the construction take place? And on a separate note, the road leading Egypt Beach Road is flooding constantly. Hasn't even been cleaned up really since the last 3 storms. I'm wondering if there's any plan in the works to have that either repaved or drainage put in and repaved. I had the pleasure of watching a porta potty go down the street during one of the storms.
Mr. Danahy to answer the question, but more on the article side than on the
Sure. I'll
other side of it.
I believe, and I'll confirm with the Kevin Cafferty, the head of the DPW. But
John, could you, and I'll just address this comment generally. These microphones are very insensitive. I don't know what the word is, but if you use them, please, everyone speak up.
Sure.
Thank you, John. Go ahead.
I'll defer to the department of the head of the DPW, Kevin Cafferty. How about that?
Mr. Cafferty.
Thank you. We'll start a design on this, and then we'll go through all our permits with conservation and start the project and push it along as fast as we can. Sorry, I didn't hear the question about the road.
Questions in the reserve room? Yeah, Kevin, why don't you tell them what pushing it along means?
It'd be in the fall, would be starting earliest for construction. But we'd have to go through conservation and everything else and see if we need to make some design improvements. It'd be similar to the one we did in Humrock without the basketball courts.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote? Passage of this motion requires a majority vote. In this room and in the other, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Wow. Unanimous, except for one. And look, I know there aren't more people in the other room to overwhelm the vote, where it was unanimous anyway, but every person's vote counts. So we're going to count every time somebody has to vote in there, because they have a voice too. So, anyway. Thank you. They sound like spacemen or something. Okay, so voted and declared. Majority passed. Okay, the next held item was M. Who have we got on M? M. M as in Martha. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Phyllis Carlberg, 26 Hughes Road. Because I am a senior, believe it or not, a junior senior, but I'm getting there, and I live down where the Council of Aging had given their first choice for the new senior center, I paid a lot of attention to this particular detailing. When I saw the feasibility study being drilled, and it was taking place, and I stopped as I drove by and spoke with the crew that was working on there that day. So I know exactly where the drills were testing the soil, and they were down 10 foot, and they were churning up all sorts of sand. Parcel 3 that was Boston Sand and Gravel, and currently in the hands of the Housing Authority since 1993. As residents, when we had the Board of Selectmen's meeting here in this facility, we were told by the chair of the Board of the Selectmen that the family had donated the land and they wanted it to stay for affordable housing. Interestingly, a couple days after that, I had a chance to speak with the family, as they live right down the street, about this parcel of land, and kind of saying, oh, I didn't realize that you guys owned that parcel of land also. And they said, oh, no, that's not true. We had the land that was donated, that my family donated, was up in the North River Road area, which had been the Pickok Farm area, and the green bean patch down by parcel 3 was a different family. Let me just be clear about this area that we're talking about. If you're coming from the harbor down the Driftway towards Greenbush, you have the intersection of Kent Street and North River Road. You go towards Greenbush. The parcel on the left right there is the family that had donated the land. Then you have another little area that had been built up. It was the Westerhoff's property, where Greg Webb built 4 duplexes and 3 houses that sit there. And then you go down towards the sewage treatment plant, and that would be parcel 3, the area that the Council of Aging was looking at. With this information, I think that we have to rethink what we're getting for information, because this clearly was not the right and the correct information. I took a ride down to the Registry of Deeds, which is an extreme wealth of information that I would invite anybody to go down and check out these particular parcels of land to find out that this is the truth. And we need to be clear about everything that is being told to us within this town from the boards that are representing us. And I really feel strongly, until we understand and know the whole parcel, we need to step back and think about this whole thing so that we get the whole information, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the cost, and what's really going to happen. Because the senior center is not just a senior center program, a project, it's being rolled in and combined with something else. And I would ask people to, until we understand, I completely understand that we need a senior center, but this may not be the right time and place right now. Thank you.
Lady to my right.
Andrea Hunt, 66 Manlot Road. My feeling about this particular project is pretty well known around town. I'm not going to speak to a lot of reasons why, and there are multiple reasons why I am not for this particular project. I respect the fact that the seniors need to have a new center at some point in time. This project that is only about 8 weeks old has not been vetted properly, and there is no funding available, or that has been voted on, I should say. So as a result, to ask for almost $1 million to go forth with architectural plans and hiring an architect when we have not even got the approval of funding, to me is like throwing money to the wind and hoping it lands on a pot of gold. Being an antique dealer and somebody who, as you well know, is very involved in conservation and preservation, I would really truly like to speak to the historic value of this building. There has been some discussion back and forth as to whether or not it really is historic. Well, I can assure you that it is. It is 100 years old, and by its design and age, it is able to be registered in the National Archives of Historic Buildings. That has not been done, but we have not had time to do that yet. This building was only turned over to the town from the school committee just a few short months ago, and it has not been fully vetted as to what kind of funding, historical funding, and help that we can get, or grants, to do something with this building. I also have a letter from an architect that is a resident of this town and is not able to come to this meeting, and I would like to read his plea. As a Scituate resident for 12 years with a master's degree in architecture, I am vehemently against the destruction of the old Gates Middle School. I speak only for myself and not as a member of the Scituate Planning Board. Historic resources are a treasure to Scituate and the South Shore. We are blessed to have a wide variety of historic homes, structures, and scenic locations. Once an historic building is destroyed, it can't be recreated easily. It really can't be recreated at all. I know we are concerned with the immediate cost of maintaining and preserving the old Gates Middle School, the original, which was the original Scituate High School. But tearing it down to save money in the short term actually costs us much more in the long term. It costs us in the loss of our heritage and special places that we all treasure. I personally have no emotional attachment to the school since I have never attended it. But I do recognize the main center brick structure as a beautiful piece of architecture in Scituate. Just like Lawson Tower or Scituate Lighthouse, we certainly wouldn't tear those structures down, and I don't believe that we should tear down the original high school main center building either. Nobody wants a new senior center more than I do, as I enter that demographic. But tearing down an historic structure is short-sighted, and I cannot or will not endorse it. Thank you, Richard Taylor. I agree with Richard wholeheartedly from the historic point. And what nobody has addressed in any of the presentations is that that building, all by itself, as it stands, has got value. It has solid foundation, and yes, it needs to be gutted inside and it needs to be rehabbed. But there is no reason that that school could not be rehabbed. We were actually presented with options to have it rehabbed just a couple of years ago. And now all of a sudden it needs to be demolished. If the seniors want a center, and I believe they need one, we have other options for that center. It does not need to be in a place where we have to lose our historic character and beauty in this town. Thank you.
Gentleman at the center mic.
Chris Karsh, Stockbridge Road, Chairman, Capital Planning. Report from the Capital Planning Committee. This was a 3-2 vote in favor of not recommending this. Capital Planning is unanimous in their support of a senior center in this town. There is no question we need a new one. The problem we have with this project is that it has not been fully vetted. We're asking for almost $1 million for a project that we don't even know is going to be approved. We have questions about using this site for a senior center as opposed to other uses, possible new schools or the like. We need to come up with a total plan of what is going on with all the buildings, the schools and everything in this town before we start tearing one down to build another in sort of this haphazard plan that we've been going by. So again, that vote was 3-2 not to recommend by the Capital Planning Committee.
Lady to my left.
Hi, excuse me, Paula Elsmore, Marion Road. I guess my question is, what part of the building are you planning on using for the senior center?
To answer the question, Selectman Danahy.
Sure. We're actually looking at a model right now, 15,000 square feet. That's what we're looking at.
So what part of the building will get torn down to use 15,000
I'm sorry,
square
I didn't hear
feet?
the first part of your question. So I'm going to show for the people in the auditorium up here on the screen, and I'm not sure if the people in the music room can see it, but I'll explain it as we go through it. What we have here is the representation of Gates Middle School, formerly the high school. And what I'm pointing at with the laser right here is what's called the C building. That's the slab building that was built in 1959. It was built to be temporary. This obviously is First Parish. This is the intersection of Cudworth, First Parish, and Beaver Dam. This happens to be the gymnasium section. And then this section right here, it's called the A section, and it goes out with the long building in the back. That was built in about 1948 to 52, as was the gymnasium. The B section happens to be the original building, which was built in 1916, and then they added the wings on. This wing here and this wing here used to be the auditorium and where Town Hall used to be held, or the annual town meeting. So what we're proposing is that the B section, starting from the old building and the wings, would probably be torn down. And a section, or if not all, but a portion of the A wing that goes out to the tennis courts would possibly be torn down. We are going to keep the section that attaches to the Recreation Department, which is housed there now in the gymnasium, and we're looking to see if we can maybe preserve some of the sections, if not all the section, that goes out to the tennis courts. So to answer your question, yes, the original building that was built in 1916 that replaced the original high school, which is the Little Red Schoolhouse, which is the Historical Society that used to sit in dead center here, is to be torn down. And that would be the location, if you will, of the proposed center for the seniors.
So there's no way that you could make that building a multi-use building for all generations? I mean, to make a building just for a small group, I'm a senior, and I would never go to a senior center, okay? I don't understand why you would take a building like that, a beautiful old building like that, and tear it down and build a center for one group of people.
So I think people here need to have, shall we say, an answer of how much money do you want to spend for taxes to keep the original building, not the C wing, not the slab, just to keep the B section and the A section, just to renovate it. We're looking at $30 million. That's an average family home of $355. Now, you asked the question about use, and I think that's a great question, because I've been toying with that for the past 4 years. In 2013, the Board of Selectmen sat down and said, what are we going to do with all of the priorities that have been kicked down the road, that proverbial can, over 30 years? Talking about water, talking about foreshore protection, talking about sewer, talking about a library, talking about a middle school, talking about public safety building. And so we started out the priorities. This priority has been kicked down since 2003 and 2007. And so we initially thought, from a cost perspective, that maybe we could put Town Hall, Senior Center, and a multitude of departments in the original building. But remember, this was originally built to be a high school, added on to be a high school, added on to be a middle school, as well as now it's defunct. It wasn't built to be a senior center. It wasn't built to be a town hall. And then we have a town hall that we presently
Well, okay,
have.
I think the lady still has the floor, and we're starting to venture away from the question that she asked. Ma'am.
I guess my point is that I really feel that a building that was built before Fenway Park by 1 year is old, and it should be kept, and it should be rehabbed and made useful for the entire town to use it. Everybody. Thank you.
Gentleman to my right.
Scott Greenbaum, 40 Damon Road, a recent joiner of the seniors, but I do support that we do need a center. The elephant in the room has not been addressed. Are we going to put an override and get it passed for somewhere between $15 and $20 million to get this plan done? That is the biggest problem, and I hate to put $1 million up and find out we can't get the override when we have all these other needs that John laid out that the capital money can go. I do have one question that maybe somebody can answer. If this does go ahead, can the $1 million be put into the project as part of the override and move so that we can get move general funds or stabilization funds, free cash, back into for our use if it does go forward? I don't know if anybody here can answer that question after we spent it before we got the override.
So yes, Scott, it's not 15 or 20 million is what we're looking at. We're looking at probably about 10 and a half, possibly 12 million. The issue is with that front is you still have the white elephant, which is the Gates building. That's the elephant. And as far as doing it the way that you're suggesting, sure, we could, but we're going to have to take that out of your taxpayer money. This is free cash that we have available to be able to put down engineering, also the design, and then ultimately you're able to put down the bid products. So you're not going to be asking the taxpayers to increase your tax bill to pay for it. This is money that we have that's available that decreases the ultimate cost. So it's a question, do you want to do that now or do you want to do it later? And we think it's probably prudent to at least let's get it done. Let's get the bid done, let's get the design done, and then get into the discussion of the design.
As I said, it's a risk. The $1 million might be just gone. I also want to make some other statements. I was on the school building committee. We reviewed this school for renovation. $30 million was kind of on the light side. It was more like $45 million to try to renovate it. Quite frankly, unfortunately, it's really not very valuable to be used as any other space. Also, most people are probably not aware the top floor of the centerpiece is not original. That was added at some later date, I think in the late 20s or early 30s. So the original building, we don't even know what, looked a lot different than the actual building that we have now. So it's not as historic as it was, as we think. Trying to say the B wing for anything as an engineer, that's not worth it. It's just not. It's a concrete block, cinder block building. It probably can't even take seismic testing. I would like to see us go ahead with some type of senior center. We need to have a small feasibility study, come up with an exact plan, a price for that plan, which I believe is going to be much higher than John estimates, because there's a lot of fill and stuff that we need there, and there's a lot of demolition with asbestos and other things. And when we have that, then we should go through the normal process that we've done on all our building projects, which is come back and ask for the price to design, get final construction drawings, and build it and see if it passes the override. Another $30,000 will get us through this feasibility study, and then we have something solid to work with. I also would like to see this being a multi-generational building where we can use it for all our citizens. And part of the original plan for the senior center had a workout place for seniors and stuff. That's already sitting there. We've already renovated it. Why are we paying for it twice? We might be able to get away with a smaller building attached. Thanks.
Okay. Before I recognize the gentleman to my left, I want to get the administration recommendation and recommendation from the advisory committee. So, Mr. Boudreau, if you would like to speak.
Sure. I'm so glad to see everybody came out for my first town meeting. I'm a little flattered. I knew you all coming. I would have worn my yellow jacket. One of the beauties of this site and one of the reasons I think it's so attractive is the multi-generational aspect that people are talking about. To connect the senior center to the Gates Gymnasium, the Veterans Memorial Gymnasium, is to make all that programming available to the seniors and to the community. This replicates in many ways a multi-generational community center by connecting the recreation use to the senior use and making all those spaces available for cross-generational activities. That's one of the beauties of this site and one of the reasons I thought it was such a good place to put the senior center. To reiterate what Mr. Danahy said, the senior center really is looking to be a standalone building, not in the Gates. So we're going to spend $10+ million somewhere here, the Driftway, someplace to put a senior center. It is an absolute need and a priority, and it is in the plan. I keep hearing about the plan, the 2014 plan, the 2016 plan, all said the same things. Library, public safety building, middle school, senior center. The senior center is next in the 5-year plan. Yeah. Also, we spend, again, $10 million plus or minus to locate the senior center either at the Gates property or someplace else. We still have a $30 million building that we need to do something with. Does the town, in essence, want to spend $30 million to move the town hall into the Gates building, plus $10 million to build a senior center? We are now in the neighborhood of $40 million. If we put the senior center in the back of the Gates parcel, which was one of the recommendations of the 2016 Reuse Committee, we then need to come up with the money to rebuild the track and field that we will be building the senior center on top of. That is not part of the $40 million. I would be more than pleased to have a giant office in the Gates building, but I don't think it's realistic to ask the town to spend that type of money to move the town hall into that building. We have no other uses for it at this time. Can it be reused? Absolutely. Would it make a very nice, wonderful building? It certainly would. Is it financially feasible for the town of Scituate and the taxpayers of Scituate to foot that type of bill? I don't believe it is, which is why I looked at it and said, the Adaptive Reuse Committee said, we can take this building down for recreational purposes. Why not take it down, connect the senior center to the gym, the weight room that's going to be underneath? If we can save the A-Wing, our plan would be to put some of our human services into the A-Wing, the veterans officer, the social workers, those type of activities. So it would be almost a one-stop shopping, multi-generational facility in the center of town with fields, with tennis courts, with the library across the street. It would be absolutely a nexus, as I like to say. All the good things of town government would be there. All the bad things of town government would remain down at the town hall with me. So really, in terms of multi-generation and fiscal prudence, it's not that I think tearing down the Gates is a great idea. It's just we don't see another way around that basically $30 million white elephant, and to come back and ask the taxpayers for that kind of money is a big ask, which is why the suggestion was, let's take it down, connect the senior center, make that multi-generational community use center, and move on with doing some other stuff for much less money down at the town hall and some of these other buildings. So that is why I recommend it. That is why I hope people will vote for it tonight.
Okay, and I only just wanted to say...
Could you identify yourself, please?
Sorry, Patrice Metro for the Advisory Board. And I just wanted to say that the Advisory Board has supported this issue 6-1. And Mr. Boudreau said everything that I could possibly say. We saw it as a need that the community has wanted for a long time. We need a senior center. We saw this as a cost-effective plan. We saw them as operating in what we thought was a thoughtful way to spend the money. And so we support it 6-1.
Gentleman to my left.
John Whalen, 51 Oakhurst Road. What I would like to say is, myself, I'm a retired federal employee. I don't know anything about contracting or anything. But I do believe and trust Mr. Boudreau and Mr. Dennehy. I believe Mr. Boudreau is a catalyst for Scituate. This project has been keep putting it off. I believe this $30 million figure, and this is a crucial figure. Obviously, a lot less, you change your plans. $30 million to renovate a building that should be taken down, I think is ridiculous. I think this is an excellent site. You combine it with recreation. It's way overdue for the seniors, and the clock keeps ticking for all of us. I just think Mr. Boudreau came up with an excellent idea, and the Board of Selectmen worked hard on it, he said. And this is the time. The town, I grew up in Newton, and there were 3 old buildings there. They took them down. They built a new high school. If we build a senior center, there would be some input if people want a facade that looks like the existing building. But to spend $30 million, I guess it has 16 levels, it just sounds ridiculous to me. And I think this is the plan to go with, the plan on the table. Let's get it done.
A speaker who joins us from the music room, lady to my left.
Hi. Maureen Carlberg from 1 Greenfield Terrace. I guess my issue...
Maureen, could you hold it close? Thanks.
Maureen Carlberg from 1 Greenfield Terrace. What I believe we want to vote on is the senior center. The idea of redoing gates, changing traffic patterns, demo, asbestos, this huge project that's going to take years and years to properly put together and design and budget and whatever. I think the people I've spoken with, as well as myself, I want a senior center. I want it now. I don't want, people have waited over 10 years, my understanding, and it's gone by, and they're not asking for something sophisticated and a global answer to Scituate. I believe what they're looking for is a senior center, one that's got a decent kitchen, one that's people could come to and enjoy, and things like that. So I think the global thoughts that are going on right now are very significant, very relevant, very good. But I guess, you know, I'm 62. I don't want to wait till I'm 80 to get somewhere to sit down with and talk with my friends and play cards. These people have been waiting for years to have such a place to go. And there were, from what I understand with the survey, this was 3rd choice. This wasn't even majority voted, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. So I don't know how it became 1st, but there are other sites in town that maybe be less money and be more expedient in serving the community. My understanding that this $900,000 is not a budget for the senior center. It's a budget for gates, is the budget for demo, for recreation changes, for gym access changes, for restructuring the whole building. For me, and people I know at least, we want a senior center. It doesn't have to be this difficult and cost that much. We don't, and we're really adverse against a huge override. I've seen my taxes go up. I've been here 10 years. I've seen my taxes go up considerably. And I know people that are moving out because they're seniors and they can't afford the overrides every couple of years. But we're all, at least I say all, me, in agreement. Yes, Gates needs to be looked at. It needs to be researched. It needs to be budgeted. And there needs to be more information and more, not just a committee deciding we're going to spend $30 million. Thank you. Can't think of anything else. Thanks.
Lady to my left.
Hi, my name is Susan Drevich Kelly. I live at 13 Richfield Road. I moved into this town, which I love, about a year ago. And this is my first town meeting. There are a lot of people that have spoken about the Gates School and the value of precious things in our town. And I have to say that I believe that seniors are really the value and the treasure that are in this town. People here are talking about netting, irrigation systems, equipment, and so forth. We're talking about people, the members of our community, and we owe them a senior center. I work as a consultant for the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, which is part of the Governor's Office of Elder Affairs. I'm involved in new programming for senior centers throughout the state. There are 350 of them, Scituate being one. I have seen many senior centers throughout the state, and we need a senior center. We really need a senior center. You have an incredible director and staff that are very dedicated. I heard people saying that they have no interest in going to a senior center, and that's the reason why we need one. I've been to many, many other senior centers throughout the state. They call them community centers. They're multi-generational. There's value in getting younger people and older people to integrate and work with one another and learn how to enjoy life and to share programs. There is many, many new programs that are going on that are being offered in all of the other senior centers throughout the state. We've started a new program here. We are trying to add new programming, but we need the space. And the programming that we're looking to add would be of interest to a variety of people. And I'll leave you, I don't want to give you a whole lot of statistics, but I will tell you the fastest growing cohort in the state of Massachusetts is the 55-plus demographic. By 2020, 35% of the population will be over 55 years old. The fastest growing cohort in the state is 85 and above. So we're coming for you, we're living longer, we're healthier, we want programs, and we need a senior center.
Gentleman to my left.
Gordon Price, 48 Manlot Road. I'd first like to thank the Selectmen, especially Selectman Chair Maura Curran, Nancy Holt, Al Bangert, and especially Jim Bordeaux to get us to this point. I think I stood at this microphone in 2000. The young lady at the stage here mentioned she wants it now. I wanted it now in 2000. We're 18 years later. I just want to read a couple of quotes from the Bargman Henry site feasibility study that was done about a year and a half ago. And this is in the introduction written by one of the principals. Senior center population will nearly double over the next 15 years. We have 3,500 seniors in this town, 65 and over. We have 6,000 55 and over. The town's investment in a new senior center is an opportunity to promote Scituate as an age-friendly community as residents strive to age in place and meet the expanding demand for services of Scituate's growing community of seniors. A proactive approach to these needs can be economically beneficial to both the town and the individuals served. The entire community also benefits when services are provided on a proactive basis. Before I start a few of the points I wanted to make, many of them have already been covered, but I'll go over them one more time. I just want to talk to you about community. I looked up the definition of community online last night. Community is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attributes, interests, and goals. I'll get back to that before I finish. The road to get to this point has been rather bumpy. There are questions about how we got to where we are and why we are where we are. The plan that Jim Boudreau and several people at Town Hall have come up with wasn't even in existence 2 months ago. So we couldn't have embraced it or put our arms around it. But we now understand, as Jim just described to you, the reasons why it is the best plan. And I don't believe that there will be a better plan that will come down the pike. The important point is that we are now at a workable plan developed by the TA after considerable studies, reports, previous plans. A plan that is fiscally responsible and has realistic goals and outcomes. And some of the benefits, some of you which you have already heard, are opportunities for increased multi-generational programming with the rec department. If there was one factor that helped change the minds of lots of people at COA and FOSS, it was that point there, because lots of the residents in the survey that was done asked for more multi-generational programming. We'll be able to do it. A site that has room for outdoor recreational activities, extremely important to seniors. A site that will allow for future expansion. Some of the other sites did not allow for future expansion. As you may or may not know, Marshfield and Duxbury, who built new facilities probably within the last 10 to 12 years, are both undergoing expansions in their facilities. They both built facilities around 13,000 square feet and are looking to add another 4,000 square feet. And the young lady who works for the Department of Elders, if we were to go by Department of Elders guidelines, we would be asking for 4.5 square feet per senior. It would be close to a 30,000 square foot center. We're not asking for that. Fourth is a plan that will bring Gates Gym into ADA compliance for use by all residents of Scituate, something that we dramatically need. This is a plan that's fiscally responsible by not undertaking a $25 to $30 million renovation of a building with many known and unknown issues. We don't have to think back too far about the unknown issues that were discovered when they started doing work at the library 2 years ago. The fact that we are saving those dollars will allow for addressing needs for other needs in town, such as coastal seawall management, sewer plant expansion, elementary school maintenance, and issues. We talk a lot about heritage and history. I'd like to see the seniors in this town start a new heritage and a new history on that site. Please vote for this article.
Lady to my right.
Hi, my name is Michelle Rama Posha. I live at 121 Sedgwick Drive. And I think everyone can agree that we would love for there to be a senior center, and I really hope that we can get one very soon. One thing I have noticed in this town is that we are not a good steward of buildings. Gates was a school that was abandoned as a middle school because it was allowed to reach a point where it was no longer feasible, and we were told, or the town was told, that it would be cheaper to build a new building. But my understanding is the new building turned out to be much more expensive than it would have cost to rehabilitate Gates. My children attend Hatherley School and Jenkins School, and every day we get to that school and watch the windows rot away.
Ma'am, could you direct your remarks to the article, please?
The article is for Gates, and I feel that if we can't maintain the buildings that we have, we need to take a deep, long look at our maintenance and not build any more new buildings until we can get our act together. Thank you.
Lady to my left.
My name is Alma Morrison. I live on 18 Tickner Court, and I was on the school committee when we remodeled that Gates School into what it is now. I'm very much in favor of the senior center, but what I don't understand is every time this building is talked about, it's pointed out that section C, which is the one closest to the bottom of the picture as you look at it, was built as a temporary building, and it's only one story. And why don't we start by tearing that down and building a two-story building there for a senior center? And then, yes, I know that there are 16 levels or something of connecting buildings and the other. If it's used for different functions in the rest of the building, it doesn't matter if all the floors don't match up. I know that we seniors don't want to, put our wheelchairs over 14 different levels, but I think if you use the flat section as the senior center and then took your time and decided whether town hall or other functions are going into the other sections of the building, we could go on with the senior center right now.
Ronald Swan, 35 Grove
Excuse me, sir, you do not have the floor.
Oh.
Gentleman to my right.
Hi, Rich. I'm Bob Thorndike. I was a selectman in the 80s. When they made this...
Where do you live, Mr. Thorndike?
I'm sorry. 220 Gannett Road, and also at the Glades.
Thank you.
I was on the Board of Selectmen when they created the senior center, and it was already... couldn't fit 1/10 of the population in there. They had to do almost all their meetings and lunches off-site. This is my problem with that area for the seniors. It is such a heavily congested area just for recreation. The Little Red Schoolhouse, the Cudworth Cemetery, which is now being expanded. I want to make sure that in this engineering plan that proper safety of all these kids and seniors crossing streets and accessing this property is going to be good. In the summertime, I know that the historic buildings get thousands of visitors. And too many people in one area. There was an instance in Needham recently where kids being dropped off for recreational activities and at the high school were both killed by a car going by whose accelerator pedal stuck. Two different instances on the same day, crossing the same street, two different cars. And I just want to make sure that safety or the infrastructure of roads, whether there be walkways up above the roads for safety for children going for tennis lessons, football, soccer, lacrosse, future needs is going to be met, not to mention the gymnasiums, gymnastics, and all that. That's my concern, is that the engineering study allow for safe travel in and out, dropping kids off, et cetera, dropping seniors off, senior shuttles. That is my concern with this engineering study. Thank you.
Gentleman to my left, thank you.
Ron Swan, 35 Grove Street. You will hear me. I moved here in 1962, raised my family here. My children went to the schools here and went on to better things. And I retired some 22 years ago. And a year after I retired, I became a senior citizen. Now, I've been watching for 20 years, and I've seen the plans come up and money come up and money go down and the land go this way and the land go that way, and we're still in the firehouse with a condemned floor upstairs so they can't use for anything. And I think it's about time we have a senior center, and I don't care where it is as long as we have it.
Gentleman to my right.
Wayne Ross, 42 Chittenden Road. I broke my neck a little over 20 years ago, being confined to a wheelchair. The amount of money it will cost to renovate the old Gates building will far exceed building a new building. The elevator is not to spec. You can't access the wings if you're in a wheelchair very easily. The concrete ramp on the front of the building is not to spec. That would have to be demolished. It was to the old spec in 1976, but is not now. And as someone that's going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, I think renovating Gates is ridiculous, and we should just rip it down and build a new building.
Lady in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Toppin, 26 Clap Road. I move the question.
All right, moving the question is a motion to terminate debate. It requires a 2/3 vote of both, well, the total body. Mr. Deputy Moderator, are you ready for a vote? I actually can't hear him respond, so I'm imagining in my mind Peter is saying, yes, please, let's vote. So anyway, I'll try it on a voice vote. And this requires a majority. I'll read the motion again. It's been a while. I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $983,650 for the design, engineering, and bid documents for a new senior center.
Excuse
at
me,
the old
Mr.
Gates
Moderator.
site.
Mr. Moderator, there's another motion on the floor to terminate debate before you can go to that one.
Well, yes, thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
rereading the motion so that everybody knows what debate's being terminated on, possibly. Okay, so all those in favor of terminating debate signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Okay. Let's just. So voted and declared a 2/3 voice vote, both halls. We now come to the motion. I just reread it to you. It requires a simple majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Some leather lungs out there. All those opposed? Yeah, nice try. Let's see what our friends are doing. Both halls concur. The motion is passed by a majority vote. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. The meeting will come back to order. Take your seats, please.
This way?
Please take your seats. Some lady thought that it had failed. It wasn't even close. It was like 4-1, not close. Yeah, I forget what you wanted, but... Huh? So the way you got Okay, kindly either take your seat or leave the hall. What are we doing with the non-voters? Where are we putting them? I don't know. Would any non-voters in the hall identify themselves? Just what we've done is we've asked the people who are in the back room to come over so that we don't have to do the two-room shuffle. And so maybe some of the non-voters came over. If they could identify themselves, okay, let's see, 1, 2, any other non-voters? Oh yeah, I'll tell you what, why don't we put, the non-voters have to be over in this section up here. I'm sorry to make you move, it's just the way it has to be. And if you voters who are in that section could move to another section, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. We'll get going in just a minute. Approach a microphone, please.
Maybe I'll get a chance to.
All right, we ready to go? I call the meeting back into session. The next item that was held was item N. Who rises to speak to the hold? There being no one rising to speak to the hold, the motion is I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 for the purpose of installing communication equipment at fire stations number 1, First Parish Road, and number 4, Humrock. Quantum of vote required majority. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. The next held item is item CC. Who rises on the hold? Sir.
Bernie Westerveld, Harborview Road. I noticed that on all the items for the schools, it specifies which school it was for. The carpeting, the school is not specified.
Could you, Bernie, could you speak more closely into the mic, please?
I noticed that on all the items for the school, it was specified which of the schools the budget was asked for. The carpeting, it did not specify which school it was for.
Okay, Superintendent.
Hi, good evening, welcome. My name is Ron Griffin, I'm the Superintendent of Schools. I just want to preface a brief response with an open invitation for our community. If there's ever questions about our schools, our programming, budget, you name it, please feel free to reach out, call, email, stop by and say hello. For this particular project, it's our high school guidance and main office.
Thank you.
Lady to my left.
Laurie Withrow, 62 Ann Vinyl Road. I had a similar question asking about where the carpet was put. I can't help but notice that there are 7 items for the schools: technology, study, a study, design, a vehicle. There are 3 items only equaling $239,500 out of $10,435,660, only 2.3% for maintenance of our schools. So I'm just a little concerned of why we only have 3 items out of 10.435 for maintenance of our schools, with elementary schools in the conditions that they're in.
To answer the question, Mr. Boudreau.
The main reason for that is we're appropriating money tonight to do the feasibility study on the 3 elementary schools. So that will determine what, if any, we're going to put into those schools and send that question. So until that study's done, we won't spend a lot of money on those. We'll get that back, and that'll drive where we're going to spend our money.
Okay.
There being no other speakers at the microphone and there being no other room to deal with, passage of this motion requires a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared a majority. Item E. No one? Lady to my right.
Andrea Hunt, 66 Manlot Road. You said it was $96,000 to the stabilization fund for purchases. I'm wondering what purchases are going to cost $96,000 that you're asking for.
Mr. Danny.
Sure. The $96,000 is actually coming from the meals tax. And what we set up back in 2012 was a capital stabilization fund. The idea behind it was so that we could try to avoid having to get hit with big ticket items like a fire truck, so that we would take money that we had available, put it into the capital stabilization fund, so that we could use in the future for big ticket items. In this case, what we're taking is $96,000 from the meals tax that would have been generated, putting it in the stabilization fund, and then use it for a future purchase of some item. So in the past, we've used it for foreshore protection, we've used it for the fire trucks, we've used it for expansion of the Cudworth Cemetery, we've used it for floors for the high school, debt servicing, fire apparatus. So that's what we try to do with this money. In this case, we're putting it into a stabilization fund strictly and solely for the capital to be able to fund future capital expenditures. And by the way, we have a 5-year capital plan. So what we do is we take a look at all the priorities. As the Chairman Karcher said, you know, $22 million worth of wants and needs from the various departments. They rate them, they prioritize them, and they get queued into each year. So after 5 years, by the time that, if it's in year 5, by the time 5 years go by, it's number 1. And so this is the money that we use to try to purchase those capital needs.
So this $96,000 will be used for something in the future, but when we decide on what that thing is, will it come back to a town vote?
Yes, that's what we're doing here in the Capitol. All that money is being generated from some bucket, so to speak, free cash.
So that's
from
what you
capital
call free
stabilization. So that's what, no, not just free cash. This is a specific bucket that we utilize. And we've done it in the past. We've used it, this year we're using it for the high school floors, Cudworth Veteran Cemetery, and we're also using money, $100,000 to replace a portion of the 1987 rescue pumper. So that's why we're putting money aside for future purchases. Those monies that we're using from 2017, we banked $163,776 for the
Thank
purchase.
you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
There being no one else at the microphones, the motion is to raise and appropriate the sum of $96,000 and transfer that sum to the Capital Stabilization Fund for a future capital purchase. The required vote is a majority. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. Let's see. The next, and I believe final item, is UU. So with the Unitarian who held this come up and tell us. No one. That's very existential. All right, there being no one at the mics to speak to you. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey? No, sir, my apologies. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Stafford Short, 129 Branch Street, Scituate, Mass. Am I talking or you speaking, sir?
Go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Who?
You.
Me. Okay. All right. I have a question. Unit 3, It says waterways. Is this a vessel, a boat we're talking about for the harbor master?
Correct.
Okay. What type of boat are you planning on purchasing for $430,000? You must have an idea.
To answer
Yes, we
the
do.
question, sir, you'll get your answer. To answer the question,
Before I move forward,
Chief.
Just seeing all the confusion, people getting out of here, we want to point out all the exits here. It was brought to my attention from my lieutenant how congested it was outside. If we had an alarm here, you had to get out of here. Side exits here, we'd ask the front of the half of the room to use these side exits, the rear of the room to use the back. In any place you go, you want to identify an exit and try to always use a different exit. All our mentality, we want to go out the way we came in. If something actually happened, find an alternative way to get out. It's safer for you and your family, so we identify that early on when you go somewhere. So what we're looking at, sir, the harbor master and myself have been working on this for a while. We're trying to collaborate and find the best way, the most efficient way that we can provide protection in both the harbor master's mission and the fire department's mission to protect the harbor, the 60 million in boat assets, its citizens, and our waterfront. We came up with a solution that the harbor master first came up with it, which is a boat that Plymouth Harbor Master has. It's a 34-foot Calvin Beale. It's a lobster boat style boat with a big working platform, a large diesel engine that can run a large fire pump. Currently, we don't have a boat that can actually get outside the harbor in rough conditions. All our boats are 20, 25 feet long, very limited. If we had a boat, lobstermen are out there working 8 months a year without the Coast Guard here. This would be a boat that would be in year-round. So it's a 34-foot lobster-style boat with a large platform, capable of pumping 2,000 gallons a minute for water for a fire, capable of having 250 square feet of working space in the back for our dive operations, EMS operations, hazmat, whatever it may be for the fire or the harbor master. So we're partnering in collaboration to save money. As far as the numbers, 430,000 is a large number. We compared this to a $200,000 basically workboat, a 28-foot Parker. After 15 years, the boat for $430,000 is more cost effective, hasn't even reached its half-life yet, and the 28-foot Parker is basically done. So over 15 years, it's more cost effective. Over 30 years, it's more cost effective by over $400,000. It's a long-term solution. I believe it's the best solution for firefighting, EMS, dive, hazmat, and all the responsibilities the harbor master has. So we're working together to find a better solution to protect our people in the harbor.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. A Beals Island style lobster boat is not the best. The Coast Guard is getting away from it. The Navy rescue fast boats, they're going with rigid boats, inflatables with the foam sides. They're more seaworthy. They can go in heavier weather conditions. You can still put the pumps on it and the fire monitor with the foam suppression systems. I think for the town, for the harbor master, safety, for everyone, I think that is the boat you should get, and I don't think that we should vote this in until you guys decide what's the best boat. I don't think that's the best. I've been in the marine industry. I'm a professional merchant mariner. I deal with the Coast Guard, and I think the Beals Island lobster boat, it's nice looking, but it's not as practical as the rigid boats that the Coast Guard and the Navy use now.
Let me ask you a question, sir. What kind of engine is that boat?
Chief?
No? Okay. Strike that. This is the... Okay.
That's all I have to say. Thank
But
you.
can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I'm just asking those rigid bottom inflatables, what kind of engines do they have? What kind of propulsion?
You can put inboard diesels in them, gas, or outboards.
Okay, just...
Okay. Gentleman to my left.
David Sinkowski, 29 Foxvine Lane. Thank you for your notes. I don't doubt all the points you brought up are very valid. I just remind some folks here that here in Scituate, we're already gifted with having the Coast Guard, the environmental police, a well-staffed professional harbor master with a number of high-performance boats. A few years ago, we added a police boat. 40,000 here, 10,000 upgrades, 75,000 overtime. I don't doubt that these are all important things, but I'm not sure this town can afford all of them. You know, it seems that we can share a $16 million safety building, but everybody needs their own boat. That's not the way it should be.
I agree.
Was there a recommendation from the advisory committee?
Can I make a point?
If not, that's, you know. Yes, sorry. Ms. Patrice Metro from the advisory committee.
Okay, we voted unanimously in favor of it, and the main reason was because of that there wasn't a capacity now to deal with fires in the harbor. So we just thought it sounded like it was necessary. Taking their advice.
So,
all right.
Let's point that out.
Gentleman rising to speak for the second time. Sir.
Still David Sinkowski, 29 Fox Vine Lane. I also remind you, for each of these boats that we add, we take away a public slip, a slip that brings value to the residents, a slip that brings revenue to everyone. So again, we don't need a boat for everyone. We could find a common boat that meets multiple needs.
The chief is asking to be recognized.
Okay. So to the first question,
I'm the lady on my right.
On no gas engine is going to provide the power we need for a fire pump. So we need a big diesel engine, first of all. No gas engine, you're going to get about 400 gallons a minute. It's not going to do anything. When the fiberglass gets going, the fuel gets going. So as far as collaboration, that's what we're doing. I have a boat out back that's a small Coast Guard. It's basically a patrol boat. It's not going to help me when I need 4 divers on the deck. It's not going to help me when I need firefighters on the deck. If I have 3 people in the water that need to be pulled out, it's not an effective boat. The harbor master has had that boat before in his prior job. So what we are doing, we are partnering on a boat. It's a harbor master boat with support to the fire department. So I don't have to put one in. So it does leave room for another spot. It's one boat, partnering, collaborating between fire and harbor master. So we'll have the capability of putting out a large fire. Right now, our fire protection in the harbor is poor. It's poor. We've had 5 fires in the last 25 years, significant fires. We've had a bunch of small ones, 5 significant fires. Our largest fire in the history in this town is a $6 million marina fire at James Landing in 1993. We point out a lobster boat fire 3 years, in 2013. It was Tucker Patterson's boat. It was January 31st. It burned off the lobster dock down at the Russo dock. It's a lobster boat dock down by Cole Parkway. If that happened in the summertime, we would have had a multi-million-dollar loss that would have went into the far end of the Cole Parkway Marina and then spread across the harbor. We would have had probably a $5 to $10 million loss. We need a high-impact boat that can put a fire out with 2,000 gallons a minute, not a small trash pump on a gasoline boat. Again, our fire protection in the harbor is poor. We've been working on this. For whatever reasons, it didn't happen before, but this is a collaboration. One slip, a partnership, better public safety, better response for EMS, for dive, hazmat, and especially firefighting capabilities, along with the harbor master's mission as well. So we asked the fishermen, what do you guys think we need? Because 8 months a year, there's nobody here. The Coast Guard's not here. Everybody else is not here. They all go away. They go back to Point Allerton. We need a boat that's year-round that can get out to these fishermen that are taking more and more risks every day in November and December and January and February, that we can get out in 3 to 5 foot seas and have a chance of protecting them. So our commercial fishermen support this. The Lobstermen's Association supports this. Every marina in town supports this with written documentation by 8 different letters we have. So the boaters want this. We're asking the town meeting to support a loan that the boaters can pay back to help us protect the boaters, the waterfront, and the community.
Gentleman to my right.
Brian Kelly, 61 Collier Road, also a member of the Waterways Committee, but I'm speaking for myself tonight. I just want to reiterate what Chief Murphy just said. There's been 7 fires, 7 boat fires since 1999. The firemen today, if we care about the firemen, they're not protected when they have to fight these fires. They either fight them from land or they crawl down on the docks through thick black toxic smoke to fight these fires. We're not providing them with the right equipment to do this. The harbor master is going out in these small vessels in treacherous seas to try to rescue and save both recreational and commercial boaters. This is a matter of safety for our public safety servants, and if we care about them, we really should step up and support them on this. Finally, this thing is not going to cost the taxpayers of Scituate. It's being funded by the waterways, and the fees that are applied to the boaters, which have voted overwhelmingly at the public meetings to support this. So I request that you move forward on this.
Gentleman to my left.
Keith Wallow, 200 Country Way. I'm also a member of Waterways, and I will speak for Waterways because I think we voted 8-1 in support of it. We totally vetted this project. There's no slips being lost. There's no revenue on the docks being lost. It's going to be a shared boat. It's actually 2 parts of the town coming together to do something together, which usually doesn't happen in this town. So it's a really good thing. I just think we need to support these guys. And this is the boat that's going to do it for them right now. And again, we vetted the cost on this, and it seems like a big chunk of money, but when you look at the cost, and if you look at the PowerPoint, and if you look at what each boat costs as you go, as it ages, this is the best value.
There being no one else at the mics. That got applause.
I'm standing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm real
You know,
sorry.
first you put me in the back room, and then you don't see me. Where are we going with this?
Well, you're at the adult table now.
Thank you.
So, you have the floor.
David Doffany, 70 Mount Hope Street, South Scituate.
South Scituate? Oh, forget it.
That's where we're at. No, I'm not a voter, but I will say that for over 45 years, our family has had a presence in the harbor, always or mostly on the working waterfront, whether we be fishing or whatever's going on. Up until a few months ago, it was multi-generational. My kids have worked on the harbor, myself and my brothers and my dad. Just a couple of things. One is, and it's been said before, but I'll go out my list. The collaboration between 2 departments is something that is totally 100% I'm on board with. I'm on board with this boat. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But this is the difference between taking care of business and just kicking the can. This will be the cornerstone for this harbor. I support it 100%. I support the fact that we'll have fire protection, good protection. I support the fact that we have a year-round harbor for some people. Some people don't use the harbor all year round. We're there almost every day. I support the fact that we'll have a boat in the water year-round. I support the fact that we can use it year-round in the water. I support the fact that it won't draw any more salaries. I support the fact that it will make our harbor safer and better. And on a personal note, some of us have remote properties that can't get to by truck or car or anywhere else, and it would be nice to have the option to have protection rather than the 5-gallon bucket. So I think on all of those things, I support the chief, I support the harbor master, the waterways. Again, it doesn't affect a tax. We work on the harbor, we're around it all the time, and I can't say enough how much I support this, not only for me, but for the rest of the working waterfront and the rest of the people that enjoy that harbor.
Sir, I just want to thank you for your grace and good nature.
You're very welcome.
Gentleman to my right.
James Hunt, Manlaw Road. This meeting just voted a short time ago to spend $2.2 million on an enterprise fund with 0 retained earnings. This enterprise fund, this Waterways Enterprise Fund, has retained earnings approaching $700,000. they can certainly afford a boat that is obviously needed. I did review the financials, and the amortization of the debt makes perfect sense in 15 years, not to mention 30 years. I strongly recommend approval.
All right. Am I missing anyone? No, I guess not. Okay. So, to the vote. The motion is I move to borrow the sum of $430,000 for the purpose of replacing vessel unit number 3 with a fire pump and monitor. Quantum of vote required 2/3. We'll try it on a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. So voted and declared to be a 2/3 vote. Well, we had that change in our bylaws a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, that said we had to wrap up business by 11 o'clock. The next article is the budget. And seeing as how it's 10:30 right now, personally, I question whether it's a good idea to get into the budget. Now, all the same, it would be good to knock off a couple more articles before we call it a night. If anyone, so here are your options. We can start the budget. We can adjourn, or somebody could make a motion to advance some other, hopefully easy to digest at late night, article. So I offer those 3 choices to you. I don't recognize people who shout from the audience. Gentleman to my left.
I make a motion that we progress to the 4 articles that were lumped together.
I think we already did those.
Oh, we did?
Bernie, I like the spirit.
Oh, I didn't want to do that. No, I broke it.
Lady to my left.
Allison Short, 129 Branch Street. Because Mr. Kelly can't get out of his seat very easily, he asked, when would we be meeting again?
Yes. Well, you'll be pleased to hear that we have the auditorium, we have this room here tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Gentleman to my left.
Sean O'Brien, 7 Pennycrest Road. I would put forth that we progress to Article 12.
Okay, advancing an article, consideration of an article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there a second? Moved, seconded. Yeah, 3rd, 4th, etc. All those in favor of advancing to Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. So voted and declared a 2/3 vote. What, you want to do this one? Oh my goodness, you are ambitious. You're doing CPC? Wow. Well, you voted for it. Okay. On the motion, Selectman Vignani.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'll try and go quick so we can get this done. I move that the town hear and act on recommendations from the Community Preservation Committee, also known as CPC, on the fiscal year 2019 Community Preservation Budget, and pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44B, appropriate community preservation funds as follows. $178,354 from Community Preservation fiscal year 2019 estimated revenues to be reserved for the creation and support of community housing consistent with the Act. $178,354 from Community Preservation fiscal year 2019 estimated revenues to be reserved and, for acquisition and preservation of historic resources consistent with the Act. Actually, am I going too fast?
No, no, it's fine.
Okay. $178,354 for community preservation. A little bit too fast.
You just have to speak a tiny bit more clearly, Tony.
Okay. Community Preservation fiscal year 2019 estimated revenues to be reserved for acquisition and preservation of open space consistent with the Act. $89,177 from Community Preservation fiscal year 2019 estimated revenues for administrative expenses of the Community Preservation Committee. $10,000 for Historic Resources Reserve, Historic Survey and Planning, $5,000 for Historic Resource Reserve for World War I plaque restoration, $1,541 from Historic Reserve for Civil War book restoration, and $418,900 for Community Preservation fiscal year 2019 estimated revenues for design and engineering of high school athletic complex.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded. Discussion. Selectman Vignani.
Great. Just a quick overview on CPC. The town continued to receive 3% surcharge from Community Preservation Act. This money allows us to fund projects in areas of historic preservation, open space, community housing, and recreational projects that otherwise would be unlikely to be funded by the annual budget. The Board of Selectmen appoint a CPC committee, which this year is chaired by Karen Conley, and this group spends countless hours vetting a host of projects that come before them. Tonight, there are 8 expenditures before you. The first 4 that I read are mandatory by the CPA, and they require that we put 10% of our CPA collections into account for historic preservation, open space, and community housing. And the 4th is a 5% amount that must be put into administrative expenses. Of the other 4, there are 3 that deal with historic preservation. They're all relatively small amounts of money. The first one is $5,000 to restore World War I plaque, $1,500 to restore Civil War books, and then $10,000 to complete a historic survey. The last is a request for about $418,000, and this is to design and engineer the fields at the high school complex, including the track and adding multi-use turf fields. There are other people that will get up and go over the details of these projects, but I just want to add a few quick comments on these that I hope you remember. And this is for the fields and the complex. First, a far majority of the people in this town use these fields. It's just not a high school situation. Our current fields are in poor condition. They do not meet the the needs of our town programs. And lastly, despite an enormous effort by the DPW department, they are overused, and this creates a deterioration of the quality of the fields and safety concerns. So that being said, the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously 5-0 to support this motion.
From the Advisory Committee, Mike Westort.
So I'd like to go over each one of these line by line. No, I'm joking. Thank you guys all for coming. I'll make it as quick as possible. Obviously, everybody realizes we have a lack of fields. We need more fields. They just are used every day, all day, and they can't keep up for it. Advisory Board recommends unanimously 7-0 in support of this article.
For the CPC, Chairman Karen Connolly. Try to beat that one, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you all for coming to the meeting tonight. I have a speech that I'm not going to give. I will put it on the website. Tony said everything we have to say. We do have the applicants here tonight. The applications had been on the CPC website for many months. We had 12 applications we approved for. Some of the applications are simply premature, and we're still working with the applicants. But we do work very hard to make sure that we spend your money wisely, and we have very many spirited discussions. So I just want to thank you all for coming, and if you have questions, again, the applicants are here. Thank you.
So here's what we're going to do. If you turn over to pages 37 and 38 of your Advisory Committee booklet, I'll read off each of the 8 items. I won't read them off. I'll just say the number. If you want to talk about any of these, just say hold. We'll vote any of the unheld items, and then we'll come back and discuss any that are held. So here we go. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and the magic number is number 8. There we go. Items 1 through 7, not having been held, will be voted upon now. They require a majority vote for approval. All those in favor of approving items 1 through 7 under Article 12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. Item number 8. Would the person who held it please discuss their hold? Gentleman, right.
Ed Malou from Countryway. I just was curious, the cost, is that from a competitive bidding process, the $400,000 for design and engineering? I understand it does not include construction?
How many quotes did we get for the project?
I guess what was the procurement process?
Yeah, so we got one quote on the project. It's an estimate. When it goes out to bid, we'll get several quotes, and then we'll always, take the lowest qualified bidder.
Thank you.
Gentleman to my right.
Tom Robotham, Manlot Road. I'm wondering why the school fields are CPC.
Can't hear things.
Could you just move closer to the mic, please?
Why are these the Community Preservation Act when it's the school fields?
The fields are used by way more than just the school students that use it. As I mentioned before, every program uses the turf fields. Baseball, Little League uses the baseball fields. So it's really not a school project, it's a town project.
So that's under the auspices of...
Yep. In CPC, you can, one of the areas is a general fund, which can be used for recreational projects.
Okay, thank you.
There being no one else at the mics. Item number 8 requires a majority vote for approval. Oh, who did I miss?
Sorry, I was walking.
Oh, you snuck up on me. I'm sorry. Ma'am.
Laura Joseph Dwyer, 11 Pinebrook Lane. I would just like to add that I think this is really important that this get approved because the girls' softball field is currently off the campus, and my 17-year-old daughter is putting kids in her car to drive them to practice. And that is a huge liability my daughter at 17 is taking. The field needs to be located on the high school campus for all girls to participate. Thank you.
Speaker to my left.
Allison Short, 129 Branch Street. So when we do this, get the design and engineering of the field, what budget will it draw from to complete the project? Recreation, school, will it be a shared?
The expectation is that it'll probably be millions of dollars,
Yes.
so it'll be a capital item.
It'll be a capital.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, I think I'm safe this time. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared unanimous. Okay, folks, what do you want to do
Mr.
next?
Moderator?
Oh.
Mr. Moderator?
Oh, all right, yes.
May I?
Please.
To you, in order to advance one more article, I would ask you and town meeting to consider advancing Article 21 for South Shore Vocational Tech, since the superintendent, Mr. Hickey, is here this evening.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Discussion requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. So voted and declared a 2/3 vote. On the motion, Article 21. Bless you.
I will start with reading the motion. Yes. All right, I'm standing too. Motion of Article 22. I move the town vote to approve amendments to the agreement among the town of Abington,
Not you, Karen. Here, you keep going.
Cohasset, Hanover, Hanson, Norwell, Rockwell, Scituate, and Whitman, Massachusetts, with respect to the establishment of the VOTEC Vocational Regional High School District as revised on October 31st, 2017. This is a longer...
Moved, seconded, discussion, Selectman Canfield.
Sorry, ready? This is housekeeping that is long overdue. The last agreement for VOTEC was revised in 1980s, and it doesn't update content, or it doesn't even name two of the towns that are within the district. So in the back of the advisory handbook, you will see the actual redlined version of all the changes that were made. And a lot of these are administrative, and they're essential for properly administering the school. The Board of Selectmen voted unanimously in support of this, and I urge you to do the same.
From the Advisory Committee, Chairman Heineman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As Selectman Canfield mentioned, this is largely a housekeeping piece so that we have an updated agreement. The two primary changes are that it would now take a 2/3 vote rather than a unanimous vote of the 8-member communities if a community wanted to leave the South Shore VOTEC region, and it also clarifies and makes simpler the adoption of debt by the school district. There's in the back of your advisory committee booklet, there is a full copy of the revised agreement with strike-throughs. The advisory committee did go through the strike-throughs and are comfortable with it. And the advisory committee unanimously, by a 7-0 vote, recommends adoption of this article.
Does Superintendent Hickey wish to address the meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have nothing to add.
All right. Discussion. Anyone at the mics? No? Okay. There being no one at the mics, approval of this motion requires a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, so voted and declared unanimous. We got a few minutes. No.
Mr. Moderator?
Ma'am.
Ann Burbine, Pennycrest Road. I move we adjourn to 7 o'clock tomorrow evening to continue this project.
I've never heard it referred to as a project. So, motion to adjourn this meeting until tomorrow at this location at 7 o'clock. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted and declared a majority. See you tomorrow.